everybody, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time visiting us, thank you. Please consider hitting that subscribe button below, like the video, and check out all of our places over on social media like Facebook, Instagram, yada, yada, yada. If you're returning, thanks for the support. Today we are working on part 4 of our Ford Fiesta rebuild, and if you see behind me, the car is still up on jacks. We are still waiting for parts, so rather than just wait and twiddle our thumbs, we're going to go ahead, jump ahead a little bit, or ahead a little bit, not back, ahead, and start working on some of the body work. Now, I have the two front and rear bumpers I picked up from Pull Apart, and we're going to take a look at that one right now, especially the back one. So our rear bumper here is darn near perfect, except this one little puncture mark here, like I don't know what they would have hit or hit them, but I can't repaint it and leave it like that. So we're going to go ahead, get this area scuffed up, lay in some of our, probably just a little bit of our JB plastic weld in there just for fun, and then hit it with a little skim of the U-Pull Dolphin glaze and get that ready. And there's a few other spots I see around here, and the ones I can visibly see very quickly, I'm going to touch up because, you know, granted it is a 10-year-old car, almost 10 years old. It's going to have a few scratches and scrapes on it, so we don't need this thing to be looking extraordinarily different from the rest of the car, which by and large is pretty clean, but we don't want this thing to look showroom fresh and the rest of the car have some life experience attached to it. A little pock mark right here, so I'll probably get these two big ones and see what else catches my eye as I scuff it up. After we go ahead and get that glaze on there and sand it down, I am going to go hit it with the Nason adhesion promoter, specifically for plastic items. That's going to help the base coat lay down and stick to the plastic. Otherwise, a lot of times if you see plastic that's been painted, just with a rattle can or not prepared properly, you'll see that it's chipped off or flaked off, and we don't want to do that on nice parts. On a relatively clean car altogether. So we'll go ahead, get it all scuffed up, get the adhesion promoter on it, and then we'll be ready to shoot color after we take care of that front bumper hiding back there, which needs a little more help. But before we get ready to go on bumper here, I've got to go ahead, there's these 3 black trim pieces. You know, one piece here, one here, and then one over there on that side, right there. So I just unclip those quickly, and then we'll be able to move on to scuffing up the surface and getting it ready for paint. But for now, I'm going to scuff up the areas. I'm going to patch up or repair and get just a little bit of that JB Weld stuff in there just as a filler, because we don't really want to throw in glaze on a hole that's, I don't know, 1/8 inch deep, maybe 3/16 max. That's not really what the glaze was made for. And I feel like throwing the JB Weld in there, a little more pliable than your standard filler. So let's go ahead and get to it. All right, here's our blemish here. Got just our cheapy DA with the sanding disc on it, 120 grit, I think. Just go ahead and get the area scuffed up here to start with. Now, if you notice, what I'm trying to do is really stay away from sanding on these ridges and contours. Just try to get the low spots here and avoid rounding these off, because those are not going to be fun to try and recontour with filler or glaze or anything. So trying to avoid these high spots like the Plag and just focus on these larger areas. And you can see right here, we've still got a little low spot. So I'm going to go ahead and sand that out by hand and then come back with some filler. Or I'm sorry, some of that JB Weld. Hit down in here real quick, just scuff it up. A few of the other low spots I found. All right, now we've got this sort of scuffed up. I'm going to take my spray away cleaner. Great product for cleaning off dust and dirt and grease from surfaces you're prepping for paint, primer, or anything like that. So just go ahead and spray on a coat, wipe it off, let it dry. I know there's plenty of other products specially made for automotive work. Picked this up on Weirdbeard's channel. Go check him out. But this is great. It's an all-around good cleaner. Use it on Windows, of course. And it's available at pretty much any home store. For me, my local Menards store. Go ahead and keep turning your rag over. And this isn't going to be too important because all we're going to do is focus on this area right here. And yeah, I think that's really all I'm going to hit with the JB Weld is just this spot right here. So when we get back to the adhesion promoter stage, that's where we're really going to focus on prep and making sure we go over this a couple of times and get all the oil and grease and dirt off of this bumper. So let this dry, mix up my JB Weld, and come right back. Alrighty, we got just a little bit of JB Weld here. And this is actually the plastic specific adhesive or glue. Different from the JB Weld metal stuff or other similar product. This is especially for plastics, like these automotive plastics. I used it on the BMW front bumper and it worked phenomenally, and it's been holding without any issues for both the tear that was in the bumper or the tabs for the driver's side headlight. Go ahead and check out that whole series if you like as well, where we did very similar to the job we're doing here on the Fiesta, but BMW had less actual mechanical stuff, and it was just all the front plastics. But get this in here, let it sit and dry, level out, and then come back and sand it down. Any other pocks I can quickly see? No, I'm going to save those for filler. But this one being an actual puncture, I wanted to hit and make sure that it stayed where it should. Didn't actually go all the way through, but it was close and I can barely feel it on the backside, so I just want to make sure that that's going to stay secure. I'm going to flip it over, hit the backside quick, and let it dry. Just a little spot right there was starting to puncture through, so I figured I'll get it while it's fresh. And I don't know if this was when it was getting removed from the car or what, but this tab right inside here is a little damaged. So I'm going to throw some in here real quick too and stick that in place. And then everyone's going to be happy. Happy little bumper. And my white trim nails from another project work excellent for spreaders and small spaces. Now I'm going to find something to prop this up. Grab some tape. Make sure it stays. I'm going to do a little wrap of electrical tape around it so the blue tape does not pull off. There we go. Tough for you to see, sorry, but I'm putting tape on a piece of plastic. All right, pull that fairly secure, snug. All right, let that dry. I'm going to let this other puncture dry. All right, we're going to let this stuff dry, and I'll come back once the JB Weld is cured to get this bottom trim piece out. For these side little trim pieces, it's pretty easy. There's 2 Phillips screws right here to take out, and then 3 little clips here to undo. And these little black trim pieces will come off. Get these cleaned up. I've got, looks like some tar to get out from the bottom here underneath. So I'll get that cleaned up. We'll get these all cleaned up. But for now, we're just gonna go ahead, let this stuff dry, and we'll come back. All right, so we're back. We've got the rear bumper here. We've gone ahead and sanded down quickly the little filler here we put in, and now we're just gonna hit it with the dolphin glaze. We have already cleaned this up with the spray away, so I'm not gonna go ahead and touch it, but it is good and clean, ready to go. So let's go ahead and mix up just a little bit of the glaze and set it on here. Now, a little goes a long ways here, so just go ahead. I've already kind of pushed this and kneaded it around a little bit. I think I'm almost going to put in another order. So we've got a bunch of other projects coming up that are going to need it. Just a little bit of the hardener. Mix her up quick. Everybody's got their own preference for how they mix these things up. I kind of like to do a little mix up of dabbing it around, swirling it around, layering it over on itself, just so you get all the colors mixed together. Go ahead and quick lay this down. You don't want to mess with it a ton once you've laid it down, so it's kind of set it and forget it. Sure, I just violated somebody's trademark. There's a couple other spots I see. I'm just going to dab it on here. And we'll come back with our sandpaper, of course, clean it up. Just these couple of little nicks here. Get that big albatross out of the way. And we'll see if that goes. See, I don't want to put a lot here and mess with this contour. That's going to be a challenge, so let's put a little dab on there and see if that does it for us. Same thing right here. I don't need a ton, just to cover the imperfection. Now here there is kind of a groove in it, so I am going to go over the contour. I'm going very sparingly. You know, now I'm just finding more and more little pock marks to fill. That's what I wanted to stay away from, is spending a ton of time sanding this, but here we are. Thankfully, this stuff's going to kind of kick over on me in about a minute and render it pretty much unusable. So I've got about one more little spot I can hit, and you know what? I'm going to leave it. We've got a few spots right along here, so we're going to go ahead and let that dry and sand that down. Alrighty, once that's done and dried, I'm going to go ahead and get that sanded down, get those couple of black trim pieces off the bottom of the bumper, get everything cleaned up and prepped for putting that adhesion promoter on. That leaves us with stepping over to the front bumper, which has quite a bit more damage, but hopefully it's still going to be repairable. Alrighty, well, we've been working on this rear bumper, get that cleaned up a little bit, and I got the dolphin glaze on there, and I got it sanded down in a couple of spots. Left a couple left to go over with you here. Some of the smaller spots are pretty easy, and for this I'm just using my soft sanders. I did try my linear sanding blocks, and they were just a little too rough. They kind of really chewed up the area over here. I just couldn't quite get the contour right. So probably a user error, but even with the short block, I couldn't get just this area. So back to the good old soft sanders, which have a little more forgiveness for contours. And we're gonna go over these couple of spots right here, and then move on to getting off these plastic pieces. And as you can see here, I've done sort of a cross-hatch pattern across multiple directions, so I'm not going just specifically one way. I wanna make sure I get everything sanded down. And you can see, I'll show you an example here, but here's what one looks like that is sanded well. You'll see there's not much of a ridge on it. You can't feel anything, but you will see in just one second what a bad one looks like. So after just a little bit of work, you can see I'm getting some feathering around the edge here, but a lot of areas it's a really hard edge, or you can feel a ridge here. The goal you want is a very feathered edge here. You can see it starts very light, and then right at the actual point of damage, we have the actual color of your filler or glaze. But down here, we have a lot of choppy areas. You can run over with your finger. You can definitely see it that there's a ridge here. There's definitely a hard line between the filler, the red paint of the car, and then the areas that I've scuffed up. And what you're looking for is pretty much a seamless blend from the scuff areas into your filler or glaze, and then back to the scuffed areas. And the one thing you don't want to do, if you see there's an area here, probably maybe hard to see on camera, but there's an area right here that hasn't really been touched yet by the sanding block, and that's because the rest of the filler is still higher than this area. What you don't want to do is just start digging in here with your sandpaper just to go after this area that hasn't been touched yet, or you're going to create more of a crater in here. So the technique is just to go smooth and slow. Work your block around, whatever you choose to use. Work it around evenly, even pressure, and don't just gouge in one area, or you're still going to end up with a hole in there that will be present when you paint. You can see I'm getting there, slow and steady, and this is 120 on here. I could have used 80, but I didn't want to dig into the plastic more than I needed to, so if I was sanding on metal, I'd probably be using the 80 to start with, not the 120. But because we are on this plastic, I do want to make sure we're not making a bigger mess over here than we need to. So I'm going to keep working on this one here and these other couple spots over off camera here, and I'll come back when they're all sanded down, let you take a look at how it looks. Alrighty, well, we've got this bumper squared away for right now. Take a look at it. Looks pretty good. Got all of our big blemishes filled in, and of course, you know, we're going to hit it with our paint, and if it looks horrible, then we'll, you know, touch it up then. Just hit it with the adhesion promoter, and then a couple coats of paint, clear, be done. So if we do see some waviness and imperfections in paint, we can go ahead and address that then. So next you want to go ahead and take off those 3 pieces of black trim on the back here. So let's take a look at that. So with this here, as I was saying earlier, we have, let's see, we have 3 tabs right here, 1, 2, 3 tabs. And then we have 2 screws that come out. Same thing over here on the driver's side. And then these black trim pieces will come off. And down here we just have these red clips that need to pass back through the black piece of trim here. Then we can go ahead and take that off. So let's try and get our way through that. These here are as simple as a pair of Phillips. And then here we have 3, looks like metal clips to get out. So I'm going to go ahead and depress these so they come out. There it went. Basically what we have here is a spring clip that has to get depressed and pushed down just a little bit so it can sneak out of this hole in the clip. And there are some little barbs on here. You can see, whoop, little barb here and here, which makes it difficult to get out. Let me get the rest of the clips off here, the passenger and driver side trim, and then we'll come down and get this last piece of base trim off. Alrighty, we're going to take a look at that last piece of trim and see if we can't get that off. The bumper here, what we've got is a number of these little red teeth that stick through here. And the name of the game is get them off without breaking them off, or destroying the bumper piece itself. So I'm going to wager I'm going to break at least one, but oftentimes you can sneak under there with a screwdriver and pop them loose, straight blade or a trim tool. So that's what we're going to try to start with. There's already one loose here, so I'm going to see if I can start with that. All right, well, we got that off. Didn't actually break anything. I was kind of surprised at that. So now that that's all apart, I'm gonna set this aside and we're gonna move on to the front bumper, which is far more damaged. All right, folks, we're back. We are taking a look at this front bumper and gotta find myself one of these grill inserts that's not $100. These chrome things are actually darn near $200. And this one has a crack, and it might stay with a crack unless I can find one that's not $200. That's a good fraction of what I paid for the whole car. So I don't think so. I've got another salvage yard by me. I'm gonna try and hit up and see if they've got one of these that hasn't been demolished in the front end. So we'll see. But back to our main event here, we have this damage here, which looks a little strange. Yeah, my goal is to work this back, probably starting at the bottom here, work it back up. I want to go ahead and work from the back and tack in a few areas, probably just with some JB Weld for right now in some spots. I want to groove out where the damage is so the JB Weld has a good spot to sit, and I'll come back afterwards with either some mesh or some metal pins like I did with the X3 and get this put back together. Hopefully I can get it put back together looking well. If not, 25 bucks out the door and I can go find a real bumper. But I figure it's worth a shot to put some time into it versus cash. So I'm gonna flip this over here. Backside, you know, it's in good shape. All of our tabs for the grill assemblies are here. Those weren't broken off. Tabs over here where it connects up to the fender are good. All these clips where it goes in for the box out for the fog lights, which are not on this model. Those are all still intact, so I just got to find the little inserts for here. That was not helpful. Actually, these inserts are sitting in my eBay cart. Found a set of them for about 40 bucks, so that's reasonable, I think. Again, unless I can find another salvage yard. All right, so here's what we've got from the back side. So let me put you down here for a minute and figure out what I'm gonna do. All right, what I'm gonna do here is, of course, get this cleaned off with some spray away quickly, and then probably take my Dremel and groove out a few spots where that JB Weld can sit. That's my thought, and I want to start on this edge here and just start working my way around back up to the end here. And as I do that, I'm going to have to bend this bumper up a little bit to get these angles correct. So it'll be quite a bit of futzing around. I'm probably not going to time lapse the whole thing because that would be about as exciting as, well, the rest of my videos. But here's the plan, is to groove some of these out, put some JB Weld in there, and then let that dry and kind of rinse and repeat walking up this side, and we'll see how that comes out for us. Alrighty, well, what I've done is taken quite a bit of time and built a makeshift jig, I guess, to keep the bumper upright and sort of in a level stationary position so that I can work on it. So here's what it looks like, just clamps and wood and clamps and a bungee cord. And the outside here, I went and ran a bead down. I know it's going to get sanded out anyways, but if I can get some of that JB Weld to sink down in that crease, that'll help. And on the back side here, I've done pretty much the same thing. I've just pushed some up in this hole here. And again, a lot of this is going to get ground out, but my goal is to get a lot of this just secured where it should go, and then go back and grind out some fillets in here for the JB Weld to sink into, and then filler and whatnot. But I need a starting point to get things going. You can see there's a couple of other, nicks here to deal with, but that's going to be minor compared to the rest of it. Like I say, if I get this kind of leveled up here, these holes and tears should pretty much contour back where they should be. And even sitting here now, it's looking a lot better. This gap will close up as I get closer to being done. So that's just going to be a work in progress. That's going to cure I'll let it cure overnight, not in a hurry. And I can come back, work this in, poke this little tab in. Got a C-clamp here to hold this bottom loop in. And then I'll move the C-clamp up around here, put a little more JB Weld here, and just work my way around in that same fashion. So why am I spending way too many hours trying to fix this bumper? Again, the new ones, even aftermarket ones, are close to $300, and for a flip car, it's already got 140,000 miles on it. I don't see the value in that adding to what someone's going to pay for it. Again, maybe if we're looking at a higher end car, something newer, maybe a Lexus or Toyota, newer Ford, Cadillac, something like that, I could see the value in putting brand new parts on for something like this. But for a 10-year-old base car, probably going to be an A to B car for someone going from and to work, or a college kid, who knows. But I don't see the value in investing $2,000 in cosmetic parts for the car. Put that into the mechanical stuff, make sure that is solid, and go from there. So we'll let this dry here and come back. We'll get this stuff repositioned and work on our next area. I may do this little bottom hoop here and then try and close up the top and work my way back. We'll see. But I think I am going to just work my way around and up and stitch it up as I'm going. But time will tell. So we'll be back when this JB Weld is dry, ready to move on to the next step. Alrighty, we've done a little bit of repair off camera, not a whole lot, but I wanted to get a little bit of a head start so we can show you exactly what we're doing here for this bumper repair. So you can see we started filling in this area right here. And then a second step I did is I actually grooved out this area here and filled it in with the JB Weld. And you can see around here, there's that groove. Now down here was a little damaged and it was causing this piece to pop up and not lay flat. So I carved that out, but we'll definitely be able to fill this all in with our JB Weld. And if you look in the back here, I've grooved out this area a little bit too to help get this to lay flat. And then once we're done with the front, I'm going to turn it upside down and come in and lay JB Weld on the back side too, just to make sure it's an extra strong bond. So after this section here is done, I need to go about trying to get this area just tied together. and put in. But for now, we're going to focus on this area here. And if you look at it from an angle, it looks pretty good and flat. This area, if any, is dipped in just a hair, which is fine because we'll skim this. And if you go back and look at this side, it looks pretty good. So we also used our map torch very sparingly to sort of heat this area up from the front and back to help us get it to lay down, especially here it was buckled up a little bit. So just a little bit of heat distant. You don't want to put the torch right up to it. You'll melt the heck out of the plastic. But just kind of stand back 4 to 6 inches, maybe a little closer depending if you're using propane or MAP. But just enough to get it heated up, and we kind of push this back down in place where it goes. So I'm going to mix up another batch of good stuff here, and we'll lay it in this groove so you can see exactly what I'm doing going through this process. All right, we've got our JB Weld here mixed up. These are goobers because apparently there's more the black portion in it than the white, so we'll just have to get more sooner than later, I guess, since we can't mix equal parts. Now what I'm doing is I'm just dabbing this stuff on here, trying to work it down into the groove. And don't be worried if you're doing this and the glue here is a little bit, creates a ridge, because we're going to be sanding this down anyways, and I would rather have extra material to sand off than still have some valleys in here and have to go back and redo it. So kind of think of it just like body work. You're putting filler on a surface to fill in the imperfections. Now we'll see how it does here in this corner where I've ground all the way through. We'll see if it leaks through or if it'll be thick enough to sit on top of the hole. Alrighty, so we're going to let this dry. And once that's dry, we're just going to keep working our way up the bumper, close up that gap, and once everything is filled in and dried on the front side, I'm going to turn the bumper upside down and lay a bead along the inside so that when we go ahead and sand the front, it's as strong as it can be, and we reduce our chance of having any cracking or resplitting of this damage. So I'm sure this will take a couple of rounds to get everything done and correct, but we'll come back when we're at the stage of sanding all this stuff down and getting this bumper smoothed out. Well, we've been working a little bit off camera, trying to get this front bumper tidied up where we've made our repair, and you can see taking our first stab at some 3M filler over the top of it here, and you see it is flexible, so that is nice to know. And what we're going to do is quick hit it with some 80 and probably 120, and then see if we've got to hit it with another coat of fill, or if we can just put some of our dolphin glaze on it and call it good. Now I did go a little bit liberal on this, so we'll see. I can feel a little bit of a spot here, so we'll see how that comes out. Then we'll also want to look and kind of feel this contour as it compares to this one over here. Now you get down here a little bit, about 8 inches in, we kind of have a little bit of a concave curve on here. But back here where the damage is, it is flat, if not convex, just a hair. So we'll be mindful of that when we are sanding. So let's just get to it. Actually, I've got 120 on here, so we'll start with that. Part is this stand rocks back and forth, and all my other stands are down in the shop, and it's trying to snow about a foot on us tonight, so I'm just going to keep using this. So I was worried about here is that these are kind of just knocking into this and cutting it down. So I'm gonna go back to our soft sander, find some 80 grit. Alrighty, so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just going through sanding, getting everything smooth. If you take a look at the earlier work on our back bumper, you can see we're just trying to get that nice feathered edge. Great example here, nice feathered edge, a little bit of high spot. Of course, there was a little contour here. Got to be wary of that. A little high spot here. If it stays high, I can heat it up slightly and try and push it down, but should be good there. And then I'm just working on this area here. You can see I've got a low spot here still, and that's going to be fine because we've got our contour in here. So I've just got to make sure I blend this because there's still a lot of material here to come out before I get down to this area here. So we'll go ahead and work on this. We've got this area in here to work on. And we'll come back and we'll see if we are going to be good to go. Just put some skim coat on here, or if we've got to do another layer of filler. I think we're going to be able to go right to our glaze. If there's going to be one little spot, it's probably going to be right in this area here. But I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to wrap this up, put our glaze on here, and that's going to wrap up the rest of the body work until we get into painting and pulling the dent out of that rear fender or rear quarter, as well as a couple little dings in the front driver door and passenger back door. So that's where we're at. I still look tired. Maybe I should sleep more, work less. I don't know. All right, y'all, we've gone ahead and cleaned off this first layer of filler, and take a look at what we've come up with. You know, I think it looks pretty darn good. Now, we found some of the high spots in here, and still a little high right in here. We're going to throw a little bit of our dolphin glaze on here and see how it comes out. If these spots remain high, I'm going to take this, the gas torch, and just heat it up very gently, probably from the underside, and go and try and block these down a little bit, just to try and fix some of that curve. And you know what, if some of this filler comes off from the heat, so be it. We can certainly reapply it. I'm not concerned about that, but I am concerned about making sure that these contours are as clean as possible. Now, this is pretty complicated. If you look over here, it's tough to see, but like I was saying before, here it's kind of concave and dips in, then it flattens out, and then it kind of becomes convex as you wrap around to the front of the bumper here. So this is pretty detailed in this area, and you know, we're going to get it as close as we can. If we get it in paint and it looks like trash, then we'll find a different option. But again, I'm far more into putting some of my own time and a little bit of shop supplies for filler and glue, and not be spending $300 plus on even an aftermarket bumper. As I said, the brand new ones, the factory Ford ones, are close to $800 a piece that I found online. You know, that is complete with all the other plastics in them, but still, that's what I paid for the car, and it's not worth it. So it'd be worth it if it was a, you know, Alpina or Mercedes, you know, an AMG, something nice. Not a base level Ford, sorry. It's not worth that for for this point in life. So we'll go ahead and throw some of that dolphin glaze on and let that sit overnight here, just because it's late and I'm going to bed. So we'll come back, get that sanded down, and see where we sit. Alrighty, we've gone ahead and laid that glaze down, dolphin glaze, and now we've got a little bit of guide coat, just sprayed some black Rust-Oleum Farm Black on there, Tractor Black, and just use it to guide coat. So I'm going to hit it with the 120. And this guide coat should show us if we have any more low spots hiding around. Of course, it's going to be a little deceptive in this area where our contour goes from concave to convex, but we'll see what we get. You can tell overall it's looking pretty good. Got just a few little spots here, which, you know, we still have to prime the entire bumper, so I'm not worried about that at all. Go ahead and hit this piece just by hand up here. Check our contour, and then we're going to call this bumper good, at least till we get into complete priming. All right, so I think for right now, we're just going to leave this as is. This feels super smooth. Like I said, I know we've got just a little bit of area right here that we'll have to pay attention to when we prime it, but I think you get a couple, 2-3 coats of primer on here, at least 2. Once everything is all scuffed up, hit a guide coat, sand it down, and see what you've missed, and a light 3rd coat. That should do it for us. Alrighty, when we come back, probably the episode after next, so it'd be episode 6, I think we're going to be working on pulling that dent out of the rear quarter. That's kind of the only big thing cosmetically left to address before we go into paint. So we've got that rear bumper ready to go. We have our new front fender ready to go, minus some scuffing. And then this rear bumper here, or front bumper here, is also ready to go. So we are wrapping up the heavy hitting stuff, I think. We're just gonna come down to the prettify stuff and get it all prettied up and ready to go. So yeah, so thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. If you guys have not yet, hit that subscribe button down there below. Hit that post notification bell to receive notices whenever we send out new content. Also, don't forget we are over on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We've got a Patreon account, and we've got some merch over on Teespring. So until the next episode, have fun, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.